All right. Well, how about Apple's future then? Um, I think that hubris is still going to keep going. I think Steve Jobs, if nothing else, just infused the company's DNA with it. Um, do you think, obviously, that set aside the fact that they're making money, that's what they're about. They're trying to spin this altruistic sort of spiel on what they're doing. There must
That's
be
what's
some.
big. Conscience.
Is there a component to that you think is authentic?
Oh, I actually think with the iPhone X, from what I've seen, I quite genuinely think they've refound their roots in innovation. Like
Hmm.
I say, the one thing Apple probably doesn't do as well without Steve Jobs is just make stuff work. They haven't got a guy there screaming at people just to make it work, and I don't care, just make it work.
Hmm.
You know, that got some remarkable products out to us consumers.
Hmm.
But I do think that Apple still probably do that, but in a much more measured approach. And I think you see that in the iPhone X. If Steve Jobs was around, I don't know what the iPhone X would look like, but I think it'd be a lot edgier. It would push the envelope a lot more.
Hmm.
What Apple's doing is laying a foundation for the future, and I think it's still very much in tune with the traditional Apple philosophy of design and pushing ahead with new technologies. So I actually think it's a win for them where they're at.
Hmm.
And like I say, you know, do I rate the iPhone X as the iPhone X? Probably not.
Hmm.
But do I rate it in terms of what it's telling me about where Apple's going? Yeah, very highly. Very highly.
And just finally, there's talk about some of the areas that Apple is weak in, such as artificial intelligence, cloud computing, these sorts of things, because they're so focused on the product and the sort of the individual experience. I guess even like things like group logins and the way, sort of connecting people together in that way, that could be a major problem for them in the next 10, 20 years, because unless of course they've got a group of people working in the back somewhere that they haven't told anyone about, that are working on this. But if they're not careful, we've seen big companies go the way of the dinosaur in the past, and not that that will happen anytime soon with Apple, because they've got enough cash to get them coasting for quite some time. That I don't think they want to be in a place where that could eventually end up happening.
Well, I think you've nailed it there. They must have some guys in the back room. They must be thinking about these things. I think you've mentioned it many times before, but the fact they haven't solved iCloud
Mm.
or communicated that they've solved iCloud or whatever it is they're doing with iCloud. I think a lot of the AI stuff they've outsourced, or they'll probably acquire a company that's very good at it for their purposes. But yeah, they have been weak at them. I mean, what do you think, Ben, on this?
Yeah, it's not an area like I would iCloud, for instance, is not. I mean, I do. It's switched on, but services like OneDrive from Microsoft or Dropbox are far superior in terms of the way it works and the delivery of the service that you need from such a service. And I don't trust iCloud at the moment to do that. Just something as simple as syncing a document between devices seems to be a bit more of a challenge for iCloud than, say, OneDrive or Dropbox, which seems to handle it effortlessly. So it is something they should be working on. And in terms of AI, I mean, things like Siri, is still the weakest, of the digital assistants. And part of that is because of the fact that they don't open up, they don't want to cross some certain privacy boundaries, which obviously Google on the other end is just steaming right ahead on that one. And it's no surprise that theirs works so well, for instance. So it'll be interesting to see where Apple kind of relents on that. It would seem that when it comes to things like this, they may have to ask themselves, do we have to relax our policy on privacy, or is there some whiz-bang way that they haven't worked out yet where they can maintain privacy but have this kind of service available?
Yeah, well, they're definitely going to have to make some decisions around there. I mean, they've certainly opened up more to third-party developers in the last few years, but yeah, there never seems to be much real insight into how that's working for them. So I guess we'll just have to wait and find out.